It is my pleasure to have you join us on a fresh edition of a financial news magazine program, Business Trends, here on Galaxy Television. I am Tolu, Ajayi. Today on the show, our focus is the printing and publishing industry. It is believed that the print industry can create not less than 3 million jobs annually if properly encouraged. What are the challenges that the publishing industry is facing apart from piracy, which is common? The reality is that Nigerian publishers who wish to sell good quality books at reasonable prices are forced to print overseas. I sat down with an operator, Dr. Mrs. Adesola Falaiye, Deputy Managing Director, Africa Printing and Publishing Company Limited, to discuss issues, challenges, and prospects of the publishing and printing industry in this exclusive interview. Enjoy it. Deputy Managing Director, Africa Printing and Publishing Limited, Dr. Mrs. Adesola Falaiye, thank you very much for sharing your time with us on Business Trends today.
Good afternoon. Thanks for having me.
Let me start by asking you, how in your view did the printing industry fare in the outgone year 2017?
In 2016, just like every other sector in the Nigerian economy, we had imbalance in the economy. We had fluctuation in the foreign exchange, and that really affected businesses all over. Printing businesses in particular, because printing is heavily dependent on importation, and so we rely on foreign exchange for most of our purchases, and the instability really affected us. You couldn't project. You had to base your quotation on maybe a daily or 2 days market prediction. You couldn't plan, and so we were really affected. And customers, though they knew what was happening, were not really cooperating, because you don't want to pay more for what budgets were made at the beginning of the year. So no company would, or most companies were not really going to shift that much to match printing requirements. So we had that, it was a bit difficult, and a lot of printing companies made loss. In 2017, there was a bit more stability. It wasn't that stable, but it was better than 2016. And coming into the new year, it seems we're experiencing a little more stability in terms of the foreign exchange, and we hope we will be able in the nearest future, in the next few weeks, few months, to say for the next 3 months, this is what the market is going to be, and that's what we look forward to. But we didn't have it funny in the last few years.
Now, despite the viability of the printing subsector, there are still notable problems such as high cost of production, cost of doing business generally, low profit margin, and of course, low cost of print jobs. Nigerian printers are also disadvantaged by all of this. What do you think is the best way out of all of this?
Okay, you cannot isolate Africa from the problems the printing industry is facing. Like I mentioned a few minutes ago, that printing in Nigeria is heavily dependent on importation. About 95% of what we use, we import, from the paper to the other chemicals to other raw materials. What we have readily available, I can say, is maybe the human power. So because of this, we don't have control over what happens in the industry. We are being controlled by outside forces. And so we import papers, for example, from the Asian countries. They have that edge over us because they control what we buy and what we sell. And we've not really fared well because of that. Now, narrow it to Africa. AFCA is an international company. Whatever quality you can get anywhere in the world, you can get in AFCA. In fact, better quality. And we operate in an industry where everybody wants to pay the same amount, or everybody wants a very good quality for the same price you can get in every other company. Let me tell you that printing industry in Nigeria is quite vast. We have a lot of printing houses in Nigeria at low scale, at medium scale. Only few companies operate at high scale, like AFCA. In AFCA, it's a one-stop shop. You have your printing section, you have your finishing section, you have your light packaging section. You have everything in one. So you don't have to print and take it elsewhere. Only few companies can give that kind of service in printing industry in Nigeria. Now, for people like us that have such large-scale industry, we're competing with people that have smaller equipment. It's not so easy. But one thing we're sure of is our quality. And our clients that would usually take their printing abroad, they are recognizing that, okay, they have a place in Africa and maybe few other places, but I assure you, Africa is the best place to be when you think of abroad, when you think of international. Africa would offer you that. Now, what is the low point of this is that you want to pay the same thing you pay next door. And I keep telling people that quality comes at a cost, but that not being a disadvantage factor, if I can use that. We have been able to work with our clients, to work with their budget, to partner with them, to achieve what they want to achieve at the cost they can afford. So Africa goes beyond just printing. We actually consult, we partner with so we've been able to say forge ahead in the difficult situation we found ourselves in printing industry in Nigeria by applying other expertise that we could offer apart from printing.
Now, what is your view about made in Nigeria printing products? Do you think, of course, they're on the same level with printing jobs done outside the shores of Nigeria?
Printing industry in Nigeria provides a large bulk of employment, for example, because according to some statistics, which have not verified the fact, I learned that Nigeria has the highest of companies in the printing industry. That is, the printing industry in Nigeria is more than most other countries. If this is the case, then that means Nigeria printing industry is providing a large scale, is providing a lot in terms of the economy, in terms of workforce, in terms of generating capital. And so it is an industry that should be given attention by the government and by large business conglomerates, because printing industry is one industry that accommodates high level, medium level, and low level workforce. It's in a printing industry you find a professor running a printing company, a Ph.D. holder, people that are not educated at all, and people that are minimally educated. So it's an industry that brings together different sets of people. This is where one of the industries that the government needs to pay attention to boost the economy of this country. And how can they do it? I will use Asia, India as an example. In India, the government actually subsidizes their printing industry, their printing equipment. In some cases, they set up the companies for people to work, to run, and they help the companies raise funds, and that's why they are able to produce at large quantity and import to places like Nigeria for cheaper price than you get it in Nigeria. It's not because they are not or we are not doing what they are not doing. The only difference is that the government is helping them, number one, with raw materials, with setting up the companies. Their infrastructures are more stable than Nigerian infrastructure. For example, you know what it takes to run diesel, to run alternative power in Nigeria. They don't have that problem. So it's a matter of, are we competing on the same level? No. In fact, even you see that the Haitian companies in Nigeria, they even still get their raw materials cheaper than us, because what we pay on duties, for example, are enormous than what, than for example, when you bring papers to the country, you pay a lot of duties on them. I think about last year or the year before, they reduced the duties paid on paper supply to Nigeria. But despite that, we still pay a lot. And this is in comparison to when you take your job to India, for example. They roll it out for you, they bring the books back. You don't pay any duty on it. So the publishing houses, for example, they find it easier to print their books abroad and ship it to Nigeria than print it in Nigeria. So it's not a matter of whether the quality of Nigeria is inferior. It is a matter of their business people, what would pay them more. They only realized their error or their folly when the foreign exchange, like I said, went up, and they couldn't get foreign exchange to come to produce from there. Some of their goods and bring them in. That was when they looked inward more to say, okay, companies like ours are here. Let us see what we can do together. That is not to say they are not printing with us. I can assure you that we print for almost all the publishing houses in Nigeria. But what percentage? What percentage do they print here? What percentage do they take abroad? If we can have the same advantage that those people abroad have, you know, in terms of government subsidizing the industry, in terms of infrastructures being on ground to run this business, in terms of having access to major amenities to run a company, then the industry, the printing industry in Nigeria will fare better. Because I want to assure you, and I say this with all sense of responsibility, that we've got the expertise to run big, massive projects in Nigeria. I don't want to mention names, but when you take a roll call of people in the printing business, they are not people to joke with. They are people that have the expertise, experience to run a printing company. But we may not be able to compete. We may not be able to do well if some things are not in place. And those are the things, and those are some of the things I've mentioned.
Now, you'll agree with me that a lot of companies have left Nigeria for places like South Africa, Ghana, because of, you know, especially power sector issues. Because of power, nobody wants to operate in a society where you'll be running at a loss almost on, you know, a yearly basis. What has your organization done differently to still remain afloat?
When it comes to power being a major drive of the economy, I would say that no one company can actually drive can drive the crusade, if I may call it, to make things better, because it's a social amenity, it's a communal responsibility, if I could say that. So most people still go back depending on the general infrastructure provided by the government. And you know, in Nigeria, it's the power is structured in such a way that you don't have the power to generate, to transmit, and to distribute in one person. So my company may not be able to say, this is what we are doing. So that means we are taking the job of the government, which we are not even empowered to do. But what we have done to reduce costs in this regard is that we have partnered with experts in such a way that we have reduced wastage when it comes to power usage. Our machines here are computer, they're like computers. You cannot afford for power to go off. So we have, and of course I'm sure a lot of companies in the printing industry are adopting the same